Well, our form since the winter break here this season at Jahn Regensburg has been nothing short of abysmal. Hopefully today we can turn things around, otherwise we might be dropping outside of a European qualifying spot. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 82 of Rookie to Royalty here on Shaun Does FM with Jahn Regensburg. I hope you're doing well and come up today. Got two big games here off the back of the first round of the Champions League knockouts that we made our way through in yesterday's episode. We've got Eintracht Frankfurt here away from home. We're off the back of the second leg against Juventus, and then a few games time we have got Koln at home. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that coming up today. But obviously had Juventus in the Champions League in yesterday's episode, so if you missed that tie, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Unfortunately, a big bottle job there in the second half of that first leg, and we get knocked out by just a single goal there, 4-3 on aggregate. So unfortunately get knocked out there of the Champions League a lot sooner than I was hoping, and around that off the back of the winter break. Apart from the odd win here and there, Augsburg in between those two legs yesterday, Atletico Madrid, what in the end was a pretty meaningless game there in the Champions League, and somehow Gladbach first up off the back of the winter break. Our form apart from that though has been really poor, so fingers crossed here we can find a way to turn it around quite quickly, because as you'll see through this Bundesliga table, we've got some teams chasing us now. It is usually the top 7 that qualify for Europe here in the Bundesliga, so to be fair, it's not too bad yet. We could drop there below Leipzig and still be okay, but Dortmund obviously a team expected to be right up there. They're only 5 points behind us now. That's a concern, and even behind them, Hoffenheim and Schalke are not too far away either, so hopefully can pick up some points here during these 4 games in today's episode. The two we're going to play on camera are quite tough ones though, starting off with Eintracht Frankfurt. They're just above us here on the table by a couple of points. We take them on here though, away from home, so off the back of that loss to Juventus on aggregate, this could be a little bit of a tricky game, especially only a few days later. In the recent form as well is actually really good. You can see there they lost their last Champions League phase game to Real Madrid, but despite that still finished inside of the top 8. So they actually are still alive in the Champions League. If you're wondering who's got who in the round of 16, not too sure yet, because of course some teams only played the first leg the time that we played that second leg here against Juventus. But off the back of that loss to Real Madrid, they've actually been pretty good, albeit for the most part in the Bundesliga against some rubbish teams. They have just drawn away from home though against top of the table Bayern Munich, so definitely a handy team. We'll just check out what happened earlier this season when we took these guys on. Obviously this one was back at home and actually picked up a super impressive 4-0 win, albeit that was when our 4-2-3-1, it was working quite well recently. That has not been the case, and because of that, we're actually going to switch here to the 4-3-3 for this first game of today's episode. That's because, of course, our analyst, he does recommend it, and also the 4-2-3-1, as I said, doesn't feel like it's working too well at the moment, to be fair. According to the analyst, it should be a lot better than that 4-2-3-1 is, and also the diamond could be something that we need to use if we start struggling with that 4-3-3 as well. So a couple of formations there that we could go with, but to be fair, we're definitely well set up for the 4-3-3 and the 4-2-3-1. The 4-4-2, kind of need to commit to it from the start, because then you can kind of bin off your wingers in terms of team selection. Thankfully got no injuries going to this first game of today's episode, but obviously only a few days off the back of that second leg against Juventus. We've got a lot of tired boys. We're going to try and keep these guys in here where we can, because off the back of this game, now that we're out of the Champions League as well as the DFB Pokal, we've got 1 week gaps throughout the rest of the season, and also some international breaks as well. So fingers crossed off the back of this first game today, we can then start to put out a very strong team for the remainder of the season. Maybe it's going to help us turn around our form as well. But for this game, we've got Fakanya in there at right back because Ballerini on a heavy workload. Also, we've got Ruslan in there over to Correa. Kind of been trusting him a little bit more from aerial situations, and also not that heavy workload like Decore. As well as that, we've got La Rosa in there over Jimenez, because he is on a heavy workload as well. Just fought for a minute there. He might be suspended yet again. Apart from that, Lazar at right wing, because unfortunately, Lewis Walden is again on a heavy workload, as well as Fabian Fernandez at left wing. So that's the reason that Alanis comes in, and we've got Rivera up top, of course, he's first choice these days, but also Muller is on a heavy workload too. So lots of players come into this one quite injury prone, but hopefully can find a way here to somehow get something out of this game away from home. Let's see if the 4-3-3, it might turn our form around just in time to keep hold of one of those European spots. Would be really nice to pick up something from this game. If we win it, we'd then jump above Eintracht Frankfurt, which would be very nice. Could then go into Europa League qualifying spot to be for. I think we might already beat in one. I think it's only 7th that's a Conference League spot, and that depends on who picks up the DFB poker. So definitely don't want to be struggling there and having to worry about who might win that competition now that we're not in. I'm pretty sure Bayern are still alive, so hopefully they might get the job done, because it looks like they'll go on and be the champions. But fingers crossed there can find a way to pick up something to make sure that gap doesn't close too much to those teams like Dortmund as well as Schalke and Hoffenheim. They're definitely some dangerous teams in that chasing pack. But they switch to the 4-3-3. Let's see if it does pay off. Obviously a bit of a risk, seeing as the 4-2-3-1 picked up a 4-0 win over these guys early this season. But with it of late, our form has not been too good. So definitely feels like this change here might be quite justified, obviously, as well as the analyst report that you did just see. Clear-cut chances the 4-3-3 is supposed to be the best formation to take on this Eintracht Frankfurt team. So let's see if it does pay off. And thankfully, the first highlight here is a free kick in our favour. Can Rivera finally get one of these on target? Yes, he can. A brilliant save there from the Frankfurt goalkeeper. So unfortunately, we get denied there early from a set piece. And now Ruslan gets his head on the end of that corner, but can't quite direct it goalwards. Feels like this season we've not been as good at those set pieces as we've been the last couple of seasons, especially from those corners. Free kicks usually a little bit of a lottery, but corners we've been quite good. Unfortunately, not quite the case so far this season. Pretty sure Ruslan only is something like 3 goals, which is quite low for him. But now Frankfurt, they are on the attack there from their free kick. We deal with the danger initially. They get it free there on the right-hand side of the box, but thankfully put that one just over the bar. But so far, stats-wise, it looks like we're the team here on the front foot bar position. Unfortunately, a couple of quickfire yellow cards here to both our wingers. So before we proceed here, let's get both of them to ease off tackles, because that could force us into a couple of subs there at halftime. To be fair though, wingers, not the worst positions, could get away with them just leaving them on the field and easing off tackles. Unfortunately, that clearance there from Patata is not too good. Kenazun there tried to put that one to the mixer. Thankfully, just did enough to clear that one away. A shot from the edge of the box, and it goes over the bar. So all of a sudden, it's Frankfurt here who are on the front foot, but thankfully, they've got no shots on target so far. To be fair, we have not been much better apart from that free kick, which Rivera couldn't quite sneak past the goalkeeper. And a highlight here, we are on the back foot trying to make our way out from the back, thankfully at the moment, just doing enough to keep hold of the ball. Eventually find Villainy here in a bit of space down our left-hand side. Nice pass there to Alanis, who makes his way into the box. Good square there for Rivera, but his shot gets blocked pretty much off the line. So unfortunately, a couple of good chances now for Rivera in this game. Hasn't quite taken them, but to be fair, against this Frankfurt team, we're not going too badly. We'll take off here for Kanya on a 6.4 for Ballerini also. Let's bring on here Nubbies for Lazard, going quite fairly as well as that yellow card. For now, we'll leave Alanis out there because he's not going too badly. But obviously, we'll get Nubbies here to ease off tackles for the second half of this game. He's the player that we did sign for a little bit of extra squad depth quite early this season. A good chance for him to get some game time, but not too disappointed so far with how we're doing in this game. Just can't quite put the ball in the back of the net. Of course, that is a bit of an issue when we need to pick up points. Let's hope here it improves in the second half. But stats-wise, this one is a very even game going into the last half hour. Position-wise, though, we're not holding it too well. We'll make a sub now with a half hour left. Alanis is still sitting out there on a yellow card. Quintana can come on and do a job there at left wing. He's the player that we signed back in January to cover Kamara while away at FCON, but he can do a job at left wing as well. So let's see what he can do there while Fernandez is on a heavy workload. So a couple of youngsters we're giving a shot to here off the back of the end of our Champions League campaign. Unfortunately, though, it's Frankfurt here with the first proper highlight of the second half. They cut inside there through Larson, but thankfully he pulls that one well wide with his left foot. So still locked up here at 0-0. Might be time for us here to consider making our last couple of subs. Rene Muller can come on here for Rivera. He's hit his chances and not quite put the ball in the back of the net. So let's hope here our Portuguese striker can do a job off of the bench. We've got one more sub left that we can use. We'll just wait and see who that should be used on. A couple of options here in the deal, La Rosa as well as Hawkera and also Lucci. So to be fair, that makes things confusing. We've got Mensah or Kamara on the bench. I think Kamara might be a little bit more of a game changer, but of course it's Rosa on the lowest rating. So I think what we do here is bring on Mensah with that final sub, and also we might just up the tempo and see if that helps out here in the last 10 minutes of this game. But so far a little bit of a ball draw. It feels like our chances have been a bit better though than Eintracht Frankfurt. So let's see if we can create one more and find a way here to pinch all 3 points. That ball though from Ballerini, an absolute shocker. Malia tries to put some pressure on the goalkeeper, can't quite do it, and thankfully Ballerini does track back and keep us on the ball. He picks out Ballerini here in some space down our left-hand side. Cutting in there is Quintana. Interesting to see, seeing as we are training him in central attacking midfield. Lucchini there with a bit of a long-range effort, actually on target, but the goalkeeper again comes up there with a very good diving save. So we're going quite close here to scoring, but the Frankfurt goalkeeper having an absolute blind, and now Quintana will try and pick out their Ruslan at the near post. Can't quite. Let's see if there's going to be an attack from this highlight. Unfortunately, Cuervo, though, is on the ball. They foul him. He was dawdling around a little bit too much. We do still see the free kick, though, and it's Hawkera who will take this one now that Rivera is off the field, dinks it over the top. But unfortunately, it looks like here that Frankfurt have just dealt with danger. Miller plays that one back there to Cuervo, and the highlight comes to an end. So unfortunately, they've had some chances from set piece in this game, and it's going to end up being a little bit of a ball draw. To be fair, though, it's not an awful result. Definitely more encouraging than what we've been putting out recently with the 4-2-3-1. A lot more solid defensively, which is good to see. Frankfurt apparently some super high XG chances. Their XG actually higher than ours was, which seems a little bit off because our chances in the match engine, they did look a little bit better. I think it's fair to say their goalkeeper coming up with a couple of very, very good saves there in both halves. So unfortunately, it finishes as a 0-0 draw, but still, it's not the worst point there for us first up in today's episode. It does mean now a 6-point gap over Dortmund, so actually that's not too bad. Let's hope off camera I can pick up some points against teams that we probably should be getting the job done against before we come back and take on third place Cologne at home. And we are back with highlights from the two games I played off camera. First up, a struggling Freiburg team at home, so it did mean that we went back to the 4-2-3-1, seeing as our analyst did recommend it. And thankfully, he got off to a nice start there. Fernandes giving us the lead inside 15 minutes, and then quite early in the second half, Rivera there with a square did look like it took a deflection off a Freiburg defender, and thankfully Lewis Walden's there to poke that one home. Stats-wise, actually, it was a relatively even game, but thankfully Freiburg did not take the really good chances, and we pick up a much-needed 2-0 win. So thankfully get the job done there over the team down, who I think currently sit in the promotion relegation spot game. Interesting team too, for fellow New Zealand and A-League followers. Nestori Irankunda's there these days as well as Lucas Kelly-Heald, which is an interesting pickup. He's there as a squad player off the back of some spells at some interesting European clubs. It is fair to say, including Porto at some stage during this save. So a very interesting career there for Lucas Kelly-Heald. But off the back of that, we then travelled to take on Schalke in quite a big game, seeing as they're one of the teams doing that chasing pack behind us. Great start again there through Fernandes. Wonderful work there from that short free kick. But then just shy of the half-hour mark, Cuervo there, not too sure what he's doing, but it's cost us a goal. So unfortunately, that made it 1-1. And then right before half-time here, Al-Hamadi makes his way forward down that left-hand side. Poche with the shot. It took a deflection, though, a Decore own goal. So our centre-backs there not helping us out in the first half. Thankfully, we equalised late on in the second. Lazaro at the far post, able to poke that one home from the good run from Fernandes. But then a few minutes later, and for some reason, we can't head the ball again. Henson puts that one past Patata at the far post, and we suffer a 3-2 defeat. So that one, a bit hard to take. Our centre-backs there, in fact, most of our defence, having absolute shockers. Patata a 6.9. If only he'd come out and claim the ball sometimes, as we saw during the course of that Juventus tie in yesterday's episode. That's starting to prove quite costly. So unfortunately, a win and a loss, kind of what you'd expect, I guess, winning the home game and losing the away one. So it does mean we've actually dropped down into 7th spot, but not too bad. Only 1 point off Eintracht Frankfurt, still 2 points clear of Borussia Dortmund with that game in hand as well. So fingers crossed here can find a way to pick up something as we take on Cologne, who these days have jumped up to 2nd and could go level top here with Bayern Munich if they pick up a win. It's a big game here for both teams, and of late they've been doing a pretty good job outside of a Conference League game that they did lose their first leg against Sevilla before turning things around in the second leg. But as well as that, they've picked up a 2-1 win over Bayern Munich. So these guys actually could be on for an unexpected championship challenge here in the Bundesliga this season. But hopefully with this game being at home, we can pick up a decent result. But Cologne, they're a team that so far in the save, we've really struggled against. You can see it there. We very rarely beat them since we've come to the club. Only once they're back last season, and earlier this season we suffered a 2-1 defeat away. So let's see how we get on for this one. We are going to go once we go back to the data hub and check here with our analysts, because so far it's been working pretty well doing this. But going back here to the 4-3-3, which worked pretty well in that draw against Eintracht Frankfurt, the 4-2-3-1 hasn't been awful since then up until that Schalke game, but not too sure if that's a formation thing. Kind of feels like our defense in that game were just super dumb. So unfortunately, we are coming into this one off the back of a loss. Let's hope we can turn things around in terms of our team for this game. It's our best 11, obviously, with the big breaks that we're getting these days. Sandro Veloso is on the bench, though Rene Miller has picked up an injury, so is unavailable. We should have probably checked on that, but he's unavailable for a little while, is Rene Miller. So Rivera is definitely going to get some game time here up front, but not too big an issue these days because everyone is fresh and fit with these big week-long gaps that we are getting. But the only change to our best 11 in terms of attributes is that we're putting Ruslan in there over to Corey off the back of that shocker he had in that previous Schalke game where he rated a 5.9. Still think that Ruslan is a bit more of an aerial threat despite the fact that he's the same height as the Corey. Do think that jumping reach of 19 is a little bit of a secret weapon there for our club captain. Of course, being the club captain, that could also be quite useful too. So let's hope here we can find a way to at least pick up something from this game. Hopefully it might see us find a way to somehow jump above Eintracht Frankfurt. Their goal differential, we're actually joint with those guys, but a win that would be quite big. But obviously Cologne are a pretty good team this season, coming in off the back of knocking out Sevilla of the Conference League. To be fair, that's not too big a deal. We did that last season, but also they beat Bayern. Early highlight here, it's very hustle-bustle. Both teams are giving away the ball and getting it back, but eventually here Cologne do get off a shot, but thankfully Batata here comes up with a decent save. So an early highlight here to Cologne. Bar will put this one into the mixer. We hit it away there through Cuervo, but it does go out for another corner. So Cologne here on the front foot early. Let's see if we can repel this early pressure. Cuervo again with a hit away. Bissek runs backwards, so the highlight does come to an end, but honestly, it's a little bit of a concerning start, as is this highlight. Bahoya on the ball. He's been a nuisance every time that we've taken him on. Thankfully, we get that ball back, but then give it away quite poorly. Thankfully, the shot there from a Cologne striker does go just wide, but early it's Cologne here who are all over us, which is not ideal with this 4-3-3, which I was hoping might work a bit better against these big teams than the 4-2-3-1 has been. And so far, it's not been too great in this one, but eventually we get a corner here halfway through the first half. We pick out Ruslan at the near post, but he can't quite put it on target. As I said, this season does feel like he has been struggling from those corners. Only 3 or so goals, I think, in the league this season, which is not too high for him. Usually he's pushing double figures, but back on the attack here, Fernandez inside the box, thankfully can float that one over their goalkeeper, and Lewis Walden will head that one home as long as he stayed on side. I think it looked good, but we'll see. We definitely deserve one of these goals off the back of the last couple of games that we have played, and thankfully we get one in our favour. So that chance from Ruslan missed, it doesn't prove too costly. Villani there with a nice ball over the top for Fernandez. Thankfully, their defence there is a little bit of a shocker. Unlike what we've been doing in the last couple of games, this one actually goes in our favour, and we make it 1-0. Thankfully, Walden does just stay behind the ball, so we take a 1-0 lead here just past the halfway mark of that first half. And to be fair, that was one of our few highlights so far in this game. So feeling pretty lucky that we've got a lead here in this game. And now free kick just inside of the opposition half. With 10 minutes to go here in the first half, we can somehow make this 2-0. We should at least get something out of this game. And thankfully, that's exactly what we're going to do. Villaney puts another nice ball here into the mix of this time. A low cross like we should be doing. It makes its way through to Rivera, who can bundle that one home. So thankfully, our goal scoring here working with this 4-3 through Villaney, making some nice runs there as that wing back on attack. They absolutely take out there Fernandez, who of course set up that first goal, and Rivera is there to bundle that one into the bottom right corner. So thankfully, we've scored with both our shots now on target, but Koln with a free kick. So fingers crossed here, we find a way to deny them and keep this at 2-0. They play a ball over the top there for Solis down the left-hand side. Unfortunately, Jimenez with another bad tackle there on Sudakov, and it does mean that I think this one will be a penalty. And indeed it is. Well, unfortunately, we can't make things too easy for ourselves here in the save. Maybe soon I need to turn off get stuck in, because it feels like it's proving pretty costly. But thankfully, Zolis' penalty is an absolute shocker. Batata comes up there with a decent save, and we hold on to our 2-0 lead before our half-time. Now a set piece. Can we make it 3-0? No, we can't. Ruslan gets his head on in that one and a shot on target. But unfortunately, straight at the goalkeeper there in Penders. They pump this one deep. Thankfully, Villaney off the back of it looking like at him square in the bum does actually keep hold of that ball. And now actually back on the attack here, looking somewhat threatening. Some nice short passing. It makes its way through to Rivera, who hits the side inning. So unfortunately, a couple of chances for us there to make it 3-0. But overall, got to be pretty happy with a 2-0 lead over the team that sit in second and could go joint top here with a win. A big penalty save there from Batata off the back of some more silly play there from Jimenez, who, to be fair, isn't going too badly on a 7.0 rating. To be fair, most of our players out there today are on some quite good ratings, and we've got this 2-0 lead. So thankfully, might be picking up some big points here at home against a quite good team. Now Jimenez picks up a yellow card. He's not had the best game in terms of his discipline. We'll put La Rosa on for him, just actually checking if there might be a better role that we can use in this system. But seeing as we're winning, now might not be the time. But Koln here with a set piece and Pasek, thankfully, we'll put that one just over the woodwork. So thankfully, both teams today not doing too much from their corners. And we now go down the other end here. Villaney will put that one into the mixer. Thankfully, gets it back there off the back of a tackle from Koln. Some nice short passing here down our left-hand side. Villaney will take on the shot. Probably not the right option there from our left back. Not too good at shooting. He puts that one well wide, but quite threatening there. Our XG is super high from this game. Really, Koln not up to too much outside of that penalty, which thankfully we got away with the Batata save. And now we're going to make some subs here. Ballerini is 6.5. We'll take him off here for Fakanya while he's not doing well. And also Lewis Walden has just picked up a yellow card. So Nulazar can come on at right wing. But fingers crossed here, we can hold on in these final 20 minutes now. Free kick with Rivera will put far post. Unfortunately, can't quite pick out there. I think it was Lucchini who went up for that Hawkera. Loses the ball, but thankfully the clearance is not too deep. Kamara can track back and get us here back on the ball. Goes all the way back to Batata, but thankfully we get back on the attack, lose it briefly, but eventually Cuervo with a good interception, and we are back on the attack. Interesting back flick there from Fernandez while we are on the back foot here just a little bit, but keeping the ball here nicely. A ball over the top there from Lucchini for Rivera. I think maybe that Lazar was the better option, but as long as he stayed on side, that should wrap this game up, but unfortunately, he just straight off. So definitely the ball there to Lazar would have been the better option. You'll see it there, Lazar, in a ton of space. Unfortunately, Rivera just went a stride too soon. To be fair, it's a wonderful finish from our Mexican striker, but it does not count. So we're still only 2-0 up. And now Fernandez having an absolute blinder on an 8.4, but we'll take him off here on a red heart for Quintana. And while we're here, we can make our final sub. Villaney looks on a little bit with a deeper yellow heart compared to the rest of our squads. The Henning can come on there at left back, and hopefully that just freshens up our defence to make sure we hold on here and pick up all 3 points, especially now with 10 minutes left. We've got a chance here to do some time wasting for the first time in a little while. So hopefully that might pay off here late on in this game, and hopefully can pick up all 3 points with 5 minutes left. It's time for us to go full out time wasting, lower the tempo, be more disciplined, and hope that that gets the job done here with only 5 minutes left, because this would be a huge result now. Free kick off back of those changes. Rivera, if he can put this top left corner, that would surely seal us all 3 points. Is taking his time as we've just instructed. Let's see if he can finally score here from one of these set pieces. A very well worked move, but Henning puts it wide and while we're here, we'll also check those wing backs onto fullbacks. We got to do that before with those changes to super time wasted. It definitely feels like it helps, apart from the buying game where we stuffed things up last week. But thankfully, it feels like at the moment we're going to hold on here and pick up 3 points, albeit now a throw-in. We are on the ball from it though, so fingers crossed that we don't do anything silly and give the ball away. That ball there is quite nice from Lazar, but unfortunately just can't find a way to bundle that one over the line. In fact, Lazar was offside anyway, so a little bit there of a waste of time highlight, but thankfully it sucks up the entirety of extra time, and that is a big result for us there. We pick up our first big win in a wee while in the save, a 2-0 win over a second place Cologne team who there had a big chance to go join on points with Bayern. They will feel pretty filthy that they haven't got the job done considering our recent form off the back of the winter break, but thankfully just doing enough here to make sure we keep ourselves inside of a European qualifying spot, and that was pretty good. Obviously the penalty made things a little bit interesting, but thankfully Batata came up there with a big save and he ends up getting the man of the match, which is good to see off the back of his performances of late. They've been a little bit rocks and diamonds, but that sees us go up to 6th above Eintracht Frankfurt, and now we're 5 points clear of Borussia Dortmund, which is good to see. We've got a game now that we can blow. Hopefully we won't know with our schedule coming up off the back of that 2-0 win over Cologne. So we might be getting slowly back on track for off being bundled out of the Champions League with those results we picked up in some big games in today's episode, especially that 2-0 win there over Cologne. The week-long gaps, they might be helping us now pick our form back up. So thankfully, we pick up there a good result. It does see us move up to 6th in the Bundesliga, and especially with our schedule coming out now for the rest of this month, it looks pretty decent as well as the early stages of April. We take on some pretty rubbish teams, some of those games away from home where we have been struggling of late, but still, there's some quite winnable fixtures here in these next 4 that we play them. We've got Bayern away from home, so that probably will be a little bit of a brutal one, but then Darmstadt, who are absolute toilet, as you'll see once we make our way back here to the table. They've got no wins in 26 games and only 4 points, so definitely should be taking some points off those guys. Maybe what we come back for in tomorrow's episode is the last 2 games by Leverkusen and Gladbach, because they could be a bit more interesting to wrap up the season, seeing as our run in between now and then outside of Bayern Munich does look like it should be one where we pick up some points. So hopefully can find a way to make sure we'll still have some European football here at Jahn Regensburg this season. But before we wrap things up for today's episode, you might have seen it before in the inbox. We've just had our youth intake game take place. We've got our youth intake here for this season at Jahn Regensburg, and actually it's one of the better ones we've had so far in this save, highlighted there by the elite talent who's an American in Koln. Only 1-star current ability, but could end up having 5-star potential. So obviously we've already offered him a contract. He looks like he could be a very good future homegrown club player here at Jahn Regensburg. So let's see what he can do in the remainder of the save if we do stay here at Jahn Regensburg. Also, a couple of top talents with quite a bit of potential as well. The 2 Germans there, and Florian Eckhardt, who is a centre-back who is 1.81 metres tall at 15. So definitely think that centre-back will be his position, albeit looks a bit more natural as a right-back currently. So we'll see what might work out for him, but definitely a high potential defender there we've picked up in this year's youth intake. And also Philip Hodke, a right winger who can cover centrally and up front as well, albeit the finishing isn't too great yet. But those are 3 super high potential players we've had come through this year's youth intake. Some other handy ones there in mid-hud Trimmick, who actually is the best based on current ability, can play left wing as well as left back, where maybe he's a bit more natural, especially with that crossing. He could be a bit of a weapon as one of our wing backs on attack in the future. And also Vika Milic, he looks handy with 3.5-star potential as well as a right winger. So that youth intake actually does look pretty darn good for us here this season at Jahn Regensburg. Down here a couple of players with 3-star potential. The rest probably won't get signed, but definitely one of our better youth intakes here so far of the safe, considering that we are now one of the decent teams in the Bundesliga. But I think that will do it for today's episode. A couple of decent results there to make sure we're still inside of a European qualifying spot in the Bundesliga. If you enjoyed that one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. As I said, we'll probably come back tomorrow unless things go a lot worse than I think they will in between now and then, with our last couple of games here of the season, I dare say, by Leverkusen and Gladbach. they could be quite big depending on how we sit in terms of European qualification. They could even impact what competition we are playing in here next season. So I think those are the 2 games that will come back for, fingers crossed, in between now and then. We pick up some good points against these teams here like Hamburg, Wolfsburg, Werder Bremen, Stuttgart, and Darmstadt. Probably not Bayern away from home because they're freaking Bayern and they have all their BS. But until tomorrow, we'll wrap up the season here at Jahn Regensburg. Thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.